has finally admitted that they are targeting Black taxpayers. It's been happening for a while now, but finally the IRS has admitted it. So today we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about some ways of how you can avoid this we're dealing with, and also how to deal with it if you run into this issue with the IRS targeting you, and if you're Black. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us today. I'm Kamari Ellis, the Finance Rebel. I'm a tax accountant who's got over 25 years of experience in the market, if you don't know me. I love to talk about all things Black. The whole purpose of this channel is to make wealth Black again. So today, again, we're talking about the IRS. We're talking about how the IRS has finally admitted that they indeed are targeting Black people. Sad to say, but it's true. So let's jump right into it. Before we get into everything, do me a favor, share this out with anybody that you know that's afraid of the IRS, but anybody that doesn't do their tax returns on time the way they should. This will let them know why they should do everything by the book. All right. So again, recently, like this week, the IRS, the commissioner of the IRS stated that the IRS indeed does target Black taxpayers at a higher rate than non-Black taxpayers. Now, if you've been following me, you know I've been covering this. I talk about some of the inadequacies of the IRS as it relates to the Black community a lot. I did a whole YouTube video covering this story because Stanford earlier this year released a story or released research about how they went through over 700,000 tax returns, went through a bunch of audits, and they found problems. They found that, again, that it was real. Now, this has been said for a long time now. This isn't really new. Anybody that, follows anything tax related, you probably would have been aware of this if you were woke, right? But some of the people that I heard talking about this years ago, over 5 years ago, was a gentleman by the name of Kim Bloomquist. He did a whole report about how the IRS was disproportionately targeting people in demographic areas that predominantly had Black people living in them, especially in the South. Then Daniel Ho, he's the leader of the Stanford report that we're talking about that kind of blew the lid off a lot of this stuff. But there was also another woman, a Black woman, right, that really put the battery in the back of Daniel Ho to get him to do this research over at Stanford. And she is a Black tax attorney, a Black tax lawyer who wrote a book. And I have this book here. It's called The Whiteness of Wealth. If you can't see that, there it is right there. The Whiteness of Wealth by Dorothy Brown. So she's an accountant by training, went to law school, became a tax lawyer. She wrote a book. So again, you've got like three major things that came along and really pushed this to the next level, because all the previous IRS commissioners have kind of denied it, swept it under the rug. Everybody loves to say the only color that matters is green, but we all know that's not true, right? Color does matter, right? We can all try to be colorblind, but especially in America, everything is impacted by race. Everything is impacted by the color of your skin. And we see the tax system is no different. So I wanted to talk about that today. It's really interesting to me because, again, I tell folks all the time, tax impacts every facet of your life, whether it's buying a home, buying a car, just simple things like buying gas, going to the store. You have sales tax, there's tax on gas. Taxes impact us in ways we don't even know. And now the IRS obviously is the biggest tax authority in the United States. And they cover the federal side of taxes. But again, you have federal taxes, you have state taxes, you have local taxes, you got cell phone taxes. So we have taxes upon taxes upon taxes. And the biggest tax usually is the tax levied by the IRS, which is the federal tax. But many people don't realize that the IRS works for or is controlled by Congress. So a lot of times we like to talk about politics doesn't matter, especially in the community, but politics indeed equals money. And it can either help add money to your bottom line or take money out of your pocketbooks and wallets. So it really pays to pay attention to these things. But I want to talk about this because to me, taxes are the biggest expense anybody's going to have. I just listed not all, a lot of taxes that you deal with, but there's even more that you don't even realize you're paying. But the IRS, the federal tax, is the biggest one. That's the one that really sucks into your wallet. So wanted to talk about that today. A lot going on with it. And it's just sad that we still have to deal with this when it's 2023. But I'm glad that they're finally admitting that it's real. So now you can take steps to make better and to really strategize on how to make the tax code work for you, because tax code is not going away anywhere. It's not going away. It might get fairer, maybe, but I don't think so anytime soon. But I wanted to jump into a couple of things real quick. All right, my man, Still Rocks 33 is in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Listen, if you are joining in, please chime in, comment. Let me know where you're hailing from. Let me know your name. Y'all know we do Wealthy Wednesdays every Wednesday when we talk about some type of money topic that relates to the Black community. And again, today it's taxes. All right, so let me pull up this article. This is one article I wanted to share with you all. Give me 2 seconds to bring that up. I'll share this right here. IRS acknowledges Black Americans face more audit scrutiny. So again, I'm not making this up, folks. I'm not making this up. That guy right there, that is the brand new IRS commissioner. So he is kind of going out on a limb, doing differently from what many other IRS commissioners have done in the past. But his name is Daniel Warfel. And I think he actually was IRS commissioner before. I thought I saw that. I got to go back and look at it. But again, it says IRS acknowledges Black Americans face more audit scrutiny. The commissioner, Daniel Warfel, said the agency was working to correct unfairness in the enforcement of the tax code. All right. So again, if you get caught in an audit, this is something you want to watch. So this guy, Daniel, the commissioner of the IRS, wrote a letter to Congress, to Senate on Monday, just the other day. And he let them know that the IRS indeed has higher audit rates. Now, again, if you were just now joining, there was a major Stanford University research study done about the IRS in conjunction with the IRS, led by a guy by the name of Daniel L. and a whole team from the U.S. Treasury, Stanford, and several other colleges as well. So it's this big, major undertaking. And so this wasn't a little thing here. But all right, so here it says, the Internal Revenue Service said on Monday that Black taxpayers have been far more likely to be audited than others. And it is considering changes to its case selection process to add discrimination in how the tax code is enforced. Now, if if you're a nerd like me, a money nerd like me, you would know that in this book, again, The Whiteness of Wealth by author, tax lawyer Dorothy Brown, she talks about how the tax code is indeed unfair. She wrote a whole book about it, right? This stuff is not new. Again, many people wanted to ignore it. All right. But going back to this article, it says here, the acknowledgement came after a publication of research this year showing that the Black taxpayers were disproportionately audited. It's something like 3 out of 5 times, right? Tax people get audited five more times than everybody else. So again, that's crazy. But it says here again, the acknowledgement came after the publication of research this year showing that Black taxpayers were disproportionately audited promptly calls for members of Congress for review into the methodology and algorithms that help determine who was selected. The tax collection agency, which received an $80 billion infusion in funding last year as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, also known as the IRA, has said it would work to make the system more equitable. Now, let me know what y'all think. Throw it in the chat if you believe they're going to make the IRS more equitable, meaning more fair, meaning less likely to bully even Black folks. Let me know. All right, so still Rocks is here. Nicole Aubrey's in the middle. What's up, Nicole? And Akira's here. Hey, Akira. Oh, you from Tampa? I didn't know that. Well, shout out to Tampa. All right, still Rock says no, he doesn't believe it's going to become more equitable. I don't believe you. I don't blame you for being skeptical. All right, so again, a lot of this happens. Now, they mentioned the $80 billion. IRS has got $80 billion in funding, and a lot of people, especially people on the right, were upset that the IRS was getting this funding. Many of them feel like the IRS doesn't need it. Well, as a person, me, who actually calls the IRS pretty normally, they needed every little bit of that $80 billion, right? $80 billion to hire 87,000 more IRS agents. Now, here's the rub, and here's the gag. What nobody talks about, because the right has been doing a lot of gaslighting, and they're saying the IRS is hiring agents with guns to come take your money. The IRS has been had agents with guns to come, not take your money, but to go get the money from criminals who they have to investigate. But here's the other gag. The 87,000 new hires that they're going to do, people are not factoring in the people that are going to be retiring. And so there's roughly 30,000-ish people that are going to be retiring from the IRS. So we're talking about net 50,000 staffing increase at the IRS. Again, which is needed. Why is it needed? Well, if you've been following me, y'all know I've been talking about increased audit rates, slow phone times, delayed tax processing, delayed phone calls. And it was either 2020 or 2021. The IRS only answered the phone about 10% of the time that people called, and they got millions of phone calls. So it's really hard. It's really hard not to understand why the IRS needed this money. Now, if you don't deal with the IRS that often and you're able to pay somebody to deal with these things, sure, $87 billion sounds crazy. But to me, I think it's par for the course. I think it's actually needed. And this IRS has a lot of old systems, a lot of old computer systems. So part of this improvement, part of this equity, part of this fairness for Black folks, hopefully will be them digging into these algorithms, looking at some of their methodologies, because again, they couldn't do it before. They didn't have the funding. They didn't have the staff. They just didn't have the time. And so now I believe they'll be able to do more for it. But I'm like everybody else. I'll believe it when I see it. I believe it when I see it. Now, there was a couple other pieces in this article that I wanted to show you all really quickly. And remember, every Wednesdays, I answer your tax questions, no matter what they are. Go ahead and throw them in the chat. Put a Q in front of the question if you have it. All right. So the research found that Black taxpayers were 3 to 5 times more likely than taxpayers who are not Black to be audited. So again, I'm going to read that again. The research found that Black taxpayers were 3 to 5 times more likely than taxpayers who are not Black to be audited. And what is it to be audited? It means when you're audited, the IRS 9 times out of 10 is going to look at your tax returns. They're going to look at a subject matter, whether it's your business, whether it's things you wrote off for your church or your synagogue or your charitable givings, and say, hey, something doesn't look right here. Something seems a little bit off. Now, that's one way you can get an audit. Another way you can get an audit, a lot of times the IRS just randomly picks names for various criteria. Sometimes they have projects they're working on. Sometimes it's just your turn. And here's the thing. Most people aren't ready for an IRS audit. They don't keep track of their paperwork. Sometimes they do some shenanigans, and we'll get into this a little bit more on what the study found. But a lot of times people just aren't ready. And as we all know, most people are afraid of the IRS. So, you got to factor all that in. Now, there was another piece in here that I wanted to talk about as well. The IRS does not collect information about race as part of the tax filing process. And Mr. Werfel did not say whether he believed that should change. Now, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts, said last month that the IRS should collect racial data in a way that allows the agency to guard against racial bias. Now, that's a slippery slope. But here's the thing. You can kind of figure out the racial data largely anyway. It's been done before. If you were listening from the beginning, there was a name I mentioned. Kim Bloomquist did a whole research report on how the IRS unfairly targets people in certain geographical areas. He did that in 2018, 2018, somewhere around there. Guess what he found? The IRS unfairly targets Black folks. Now, most of those Black folks are in the South. Now, let me find, I know I wrote this down. Most of these folks are in the South. They're in places like majority Mississippi. Anybody know what Mississippi is? Besides being a state. It's, if not the poorest state, one of the poorest states in the country. Now, you got Mississippi, out of all the top 10 counties that were audited, Mississippi has 8 of the top slots. Louisiana has a spot, and Alabama has a spot. And out of all those counties, the majority of them have anywhere from 75 to 95% Black populations. So this is, like I said, this has been talked about before. This has been researched before. It's been known. So I would say the IRS should have racial data, should collect racial data, but there is a flip side to it. There is a flip side to it. Because while they're already doing auditing or over strict auditing or targeting, profiling, right? The IRS is tax profiling. The IRS is tax profiling Black taxpayers. I mean, I should have made that the title of this video today. They could use that in the long run against Black people as well, if they create some legislation targeting against Black people. Now, some people say, well, Kamar, you bugging. You're being scared. No, they create legislation to target against Black folks all the time. And so that's not anything that's too far-fetched. So that's just something you need to be aware of. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Keep that in the back of your mind. Now, wanted to say this here. Here we have Mr. Winden said on Monday that this was shameful that racial disparities and algorithms used by the IRS have been guiding the audit selection process. He urged Mr. Werfel, now let me back up, Mr. Wyden. Mr. Wyden is a senator from the great state of Massachusetts as well. All right, so he said, he urged Mr. Werfel to collect that with the next tax filing system. They should be collecting racial data. All right. They also say you cannot have equality in society if algorithms and other automated systems that affect people's lives treat them differently based on the color of their skin. Now, I find all this super duper interesting because everybody's talking about AI now. And I don't know if y'all been paying attention or been thinking about this, but there has been a lot of talk about racial profiling, whether it's on social media, whether it's in AI, whether it's on face recognition. I mean, there were reports that facial recognition programs target Black folks or people of darker melanated skin, whichever way you want to call it. So just imagine what happens when you automate that and you try to put it on autopilot, what possibly can happen. Skynet's here. I don't know if we can turn it around, but Skynet's here. Best thing we can do is really start to increase our skills, increase our awareness and education so we can get ready for what's coming next. Because it's going to be really interesting. All right. So again, the IRS admitted that they indeed do target Black folks 3 to 5 times more than any other people in the United States. Very shameful, but it's real. It's real. So, we have to deal with that. Now, I deal with people and their taxes all day long. Sadly, I sleep, eat, and breathe taxes. I'm a money nerd as well, but taxes take up the majority of my time and the majority of my business. Now, what are some of the things you need to do to get ready? I'm going to tell you what one of the most major things that they're auditing for, especially why 50% of audit rates are due to Black audits, or not Black audits. I take that back. 50% of audit rates are due to what's called EIC audits, or Earned Income Tax Credit audits. So it should be EITC, Earned Income Tax Credit audits. So people that get earned income tax credits tend to get audited the most. And those people that are in the South, where I talked about earlier, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, mostly Mississippi, many of them get caught up with earned income credit tax fraud. A lot of that, though, is due to them going to janky tax preparers, not tax professionals, but tax preparers who will just sell children or list a child on a tax return, whether it's their child, whether it's their dependent or not, just so they can get earned income tax credit. And all of you rich folks that are in the audience that don't know what that is, earned income tax credit is kind of a credit that's helping lower income people level the playing field a little bit. So if you have lower income and you got some children, you might not necessarily have to have children, but it largely goes to people who have children, you will tend to get a bigger tax refund at the end of the year if you are able to claim earned income tax credit. And guess what? The IRS knows that there's a lot of people committing fraud in the system. Not necessarily always their fault, because there are some of these tax preparers who will say, hey, I can get you a big tax refund, right? Come to me, I can get you a big tax refund. But if y'all know me, I'll tell you all the time, tax refunds don't mean shit. Tax refunds is normally just them giving you your money back all year long. You want somebody who's going to do your tax return legally and ethical. You don't just want a big refund, because that don't mean your return was done correctly. So just keep that in mind. But that's what a lot of these people are getting installed in and trapped in, because they're going after this big money. And so you got to think about that when you are getting your taxes done. Don't just go to somebody who does taxes out of the back of a gas station, right? Find somebody who's reputable. They can be a CPA. They can be an enrolled agent. They can be a tax attorney. They can be what I call an unenrolled tax preparer. But just make sure it's somebody that really takes the craft seriously and takes the profession seriously. Don't go to people who are fly by night and only want to sell you on the merits of getting a tax refund. It's a big waste of time. But that's who the IRS audits a lot of times. Because again, there's so much fraud there. Whether it's somebody selling their kids to somebody. I got a call the other day. Somebody asked me, what should they do? Grandmother's been filing for the child. The daughter doesn't file for it, the grandmother does. The father of the child has been out of their life. He's now back. He's tried to file, cause all kind of problems. So you want to talk about those things in advance, if that's the case. If you are not together with your child's parent, right, and it's time to file taxes and you want to file them, you need to have a conversation, a real conversation with the mother or father of that child, so you can figure out, when am I going to get audited? Because that gets flagged all the time. And let me tell you something. When those audits come down and when people challenge those children on these tax returns, it's a whole process. They want doctor's records. They want school records. The IRS, y'all know, is very slow. So just imagine going back and forth with all that. So it can be really, really, really nerve wracking. So you want to try to avoid those problems as much as possible. So, but you want to talk to the person that you had the child with, and y'all be on the same page about that, about who's following. So again, that's one of the main traps that the IRS kind of lays out there. And I don't want to call it a trap, right? But that's one of the things, that's one of the issues that makes up a big count of IRS audits. So you want to think about that so you can avoid it as much as possible. All right. But you don't want to get installed in that. And again, it's very interesting that all of these, or a lot of them, I'm not going to say all of them, a lot of these are happening down south. And again, a big part of that is because there's no real regulation about being a tax professional. Anybody can do taxes. You can just get what's called a P10. Some people don't even do that. File the taxes. If you got the software, you just plug in some numbers and then off you go. A lot of these people don't even know what the numbers are for. They don't even know how they impact the return. They just point and click, and that's how they do it. And that's sad because, again, you don't know the impact of that tax return. The tax return, if you really think about it, the tax return is the gateway to wealth. You can't get a mortgage without your taxes being done. It's hard to get any kind of car note. It's hard to get any kind of credit. You need your taxes done right. And so you don't have a whole lot of time messing around with that. So again, keep that in mind. So the other things that happen is now when these audits do come down, the IRS does what's called a correspondence audit. They're mailing these letters out to people. And listen, I'm with family. We know Black folks a lot of times don't open mail. I know my mama didn't. So a lot of times what happens is these correspondence audits go unnoticed or go ignored. What the IRS does is they give it a time. If you don't respond back to these audits within a certain time, they automatically just say, case is closed. We won. Y'all owe more money when you could afford back to it. So the first thing to do, again, do your tax returns right. Make sure the books are good. Make sure your records are good. We have digital storage for everything, so there's no need in really worrying about throwing away any of your paper tax documents, excuse me, right? So store them on a Dropbox or a box or any kind of electronic savings device or program. What I tell some people, they ain't got no money, take pictures of some of these receipts and emails and email them to yourself. Have a designated email for your tax documents. Just email everything tax related to this tax email. So for me, I would do the finance rebel tax docs at gmail.com. And I would just send everything over there. I would take my trusty dusty phone, my handy dandy phone, take pictures of anything that I want and need for taxes, send it over, label it in the subject line, 2022 tax documents, like 2022 W-2, and just email it over. So we really don't have an excuse to not keep this stuff digitally and have it really organized so we can get to it pretty quickly. But it just takes a little bit of thought, takes a little bit of forethought. But again, you want to make sure your books are done right, taxes are done right, filed on time, filed properly. And if you are going and working with a professional, a tax professional, make sure you pay that person and treat them right, treat them with some respect. I'm biased, but I do believe that. Okay. Now, what happens if you do get this audit? Again, a lot of times they come in the mail. Read the letter. Read the letters. Again, people read the letter, read the letter. There's usually a phone number there that you can call. Call that number. If you get an answer service, leave a message. Do not, I repeat, do not Do not ignore those those mailing letters from the IRS, because you won't know what it's for. All right. But you get a letter, you want to call them up. Now, if they're auditing you, all audit is, they want you to show proof. Or what the word I like to use is substantiate. Substantiate, show proof, show records of how this child is actually yours. And when I say this child is actually yours, more like you cared for it and provided for this child more than 51% of the support this child got. So if you, let's say, it's you and your baby daddy, and the child lives with you, baby daddy pays support, and y'all get into the argument about, I want to claim little Tamika this week or this year. You say, well, I put up the most of the money. Child lives with you. The not roof. Shelter costs money. Water, utilities cost money. Food costs money. All those things cost money. Father says, and I know I'm being unfair, right? Because I'm doing the stereotypical thing. But father says, I send X amount of money every month. Then you can break it down and say, well, listen, you might send X, but I'm a custodial parent. I'm going to all the trips. I'm going to all the doctor's visits. I'm going to the majority of the parent-teacher conferences, right? And just have that conversation. Be nice. Be kind. I know, because some of us, we weren't taught how to co-parent well. It's a major thing in our community that we need to work on. But just have that conversation and say, well, listen, I provide 51% or more of the child's upkeep. While you do a lot, and thank you for your service, you don't do more than 51%. Now, there might be some other circumstances, but at any rate, there is no reason to just kind of blindly file your taxes without the other parent's consent, because it can be such a headache. And I'm looking up right now, there is a consent form to claim your child that you all should get signed in the event there is a consent form that the IRS has for parents who are not together when it comes to claiming a child, so that if this issue does arrive, you have proof to say, I had permission to file this child from the parent. 2 seconds. Can't think of the name of that form. I can find it though. I'm pretty good at Google. So if you file form 8332, that will allow you to file the child without any problems. So if you were to potentially get audited, you can say, hey, I have this on file. We already have an agreement. We already have an understanding. Like I tell you all the time, the IRS is not dumb and y'all not that slick. They run into these issues all the time, and they're going to keep running into them quite a lot. So again, just have the other parent sign off and look at these, or get these documents signed just to have in your record. So you already know the IRS is targeting Black folks. We know what they're targeting them for. Now the time to protect yourself. So if you do have to deal with an audit, you can win the audit. You can't really speak to people that are getting their taxes done cheating, lying, stealing, right? Because there's a lot of identity theft in the market right now, or in the world, I should say. There's a lot of people claiming babies, borrowing babies that they shouldn't do. So you want to protect yourself. That's what you want to do. Now, if any of y'all have been paying attention, I just recently did a video talking about Beyonce. And I was talking about Beyonce and how she should have handled this whole IRS issue. Now, if you watch that video, a big part of her issue is her bookkeeping sucks. Now, if she had better bookkeeping, she wouldn't have no problems. She would not have any problems whatsoever. But sadly, Beyonce is in a world of trouble, in my opinion. So I'll say this: make sure you are doing your taxes properly. Now, I know I said that previously, but I have to say it over and over again because some of y'all ain't listening. Now, this is women I was just showing y'all. That's a video I just did over my new YouTube channel, the Philly Tax Team YouTube channel, Beyonce's tax problems, right? Beyonce even got audited. So if Beyonce can get audited, you can get audited too. Now, I'll drop that in the link so y'all can watch that at some point at your leisure. Do me a favor and subscribe to the new channel, which is the Philly Tax Team channel over on the YouTubes. And if you have any tax questions, just let me know. But I know we have some questions over there. And I know we have some questions over there in the chat. So let me get to them. If you have any tax questions, business questions, stock questions, go ahead and throw them in chat. That is what Wealthy Wednesday is all about, answering your questions. So let's see what we got.
Do you think taxes are boring or dry?
Well, give me 1 second as I transition over. And I'm throwing this up in the chat as well. Can't type no. There we go. So what questions y'all got? So let's go on up to the top here. So I already spoke to Still Rocks, Nicole, Akira. Still Rock says no, he doesn't believe that the IRS is going to get equitable. Hey, Evelyn. Evelyn says not at all. No, the government moves really, really slow. I think we know that. Mote says no, they will just put up a front like they're doing something, but no change will happen. I would agree. That's what they usually do. All right. Still Rock says I got audited a few years ago because the taxpayer typed in my income wrong. It was a painful experience. Yeah, listen, that sounds like it might have been legitimate. Things like that do happen. Some tax professionals do make mistakes. Hopefully everybody has a good Q&A or quality and assurance process or review process to catch mistakes before things like that happen. But sadly, they happen. We are all human. All right. Midnight Green, hey, how you doing? Grand evening. Not grand rising, grand evening. Grand evening. Finance Rebel chat members, grand evening to you as well. Natalie Wilson, how are you? Sorry I'm late. No, listen, this ain't school. Nobody's getting detentions today. Nobody's getting detentions. All right, so Akira says, didn't they claim that a good portion of folks are not even claiming earned income when they should? A lot of them are. Listen, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. A lot of y'all are giving away free money to the IRS when you are not doing your taxes. Some of y'all get tax refunds by not doing your tax returns. You're leaving money on the table. You're leaving money on the table. Also, the other thing is that if you really want to make sure that you stay clear out of IRS problems, the IRS usually only has 10 years to collect the tax debt, but it's 10 years from the time you file your return. You extend that time period by not filing your taxes. Now, I know it might sound like it doesn't matter, but here's an example, and I deal with this often. Let's say in 2020, you didn't file your taxes and you owe taxes, but you didn't file them. It's now 2023. And you say, you know what? I want to get my life together. I want to buy a house. I want to become a real estate investor. I want to do things. I want to get this black wealth. I want to make this thing work. I want to have generational wealth. But you got IRS tax debt. And they're saying you owe a whole boatload of money. And then so You say, you know what? I'm just going to wait. I'm not going to pay my tax debt. I'm going to wait. Well, guess what? Your 2020 taxes were never done, so the clock never started for the statute of limitations for them to run out. So again, they only have about 10 years, but you got to file your taxes in order to get the clock to turn on. So that's a major reason why you want to file your taxes on time. Had you filed them in 2020, and let's say you owe 100 grand of taxes, you say, all right, I'm going to wait till 2020. I'm going to wait till 2030. Well, that's only 7 years from now instead of 10. But if you file them today, your clock doesn't end till 2033. So instead of 2020 and then going to 2030, you file them this year, your clock doesn't end till 2033. Listen, 3 years can make a big difference, not to mention all the interest and penalties that have accumulated over that time. So it behooves you to file your taxes on time. File your taxes on time, people. All right, so Multi says AI has been known to discriminate. Yes, it has. Whoever does the programming for AI will always include their racial bias into it. Right, they can't help it. If AI was truly intelligent, it would learn, correct that bias on its own. That's true. Maybe not. All right. Nicole says, I miss EITC. That must mean you balling over there selling all that honey. Nicole's our resident honey expert, y'all. So I don't know if y'all know this, but Nicole is a black beekeeper. I've shared her a few times on the show. I've shared her a few times on my IG. I don't know if I shared you on my YouTube or not, but I will make sure we do that. Let's see what else we got. All right, Oprah says that they come for her yearly. She set up an office just for them. Yeah, because Oprah making big money. So when you're doing that, Oprah should have all kinds of accountants and lawyers strategizing and working to keep her tax debt as low as possible. So hopefully she is doing that. So let's see what else we got. So anybody got any tax questions, any money questions, any stock questions? Go ahead and throw them in the chat. So Nicole says, I might need you to do my taxes next year. All right, let me know. She says, I've been audited several times. That's no fun. That's no fun at all. So again, let me know what questions you have. If you have a question about taxes, stocks, business, go ahead and throw it in the chat. Put a Q in front of it so I can quickly find it. And we can have a little fun tonight, y'all, getting to see some of these questions. Now, I'm going to let Nicole have the commercial of the night. I told you I was going to share her stuff, right? So y'all know I love black-owned businesses. So Nicole has a black-owned business. She is a beekeeper. And now I think about it, I gave you a whole commercial like 2 weeks ago, but here's another one.
Hi, my name is Nicole Aubrey. I am the owner of Albee Sweetacre Farm. I'm also known as the Honey Hustler. We have local Winslow, New Jersey honey. We have 19 hives on our property, and we harvest our own honey. You can find me on Facebook at Albee Sweetacre Farms, and you can also find me on Instagram at Albee Sweetacre Farms.
All right, so I'm going to have to give Nicole a break for a while. She's pepping me out a little bit too hard, y'all. But now it's all good. Love to help those in the community. All right, CE says, crazy because I still haven't got my taxes. SMH. Well, I'll be patient. I'm sure they're coming. If you follow them, I'm sure they're coming. All right, Still Rock says, I would like to learn more about taxes. I'm thinking H&R Block or Ethan Jackson, you would have tax classes a few years ago or something. Well, if you are thinking about becoming a tax professional, let me know. I can steer you in the right direction. If you just want to learn about taxes for the sake of learning about taxes, That's usually hard. But I'll tell you what you can do. It's what I do. Read tax law cases. I've even talked about some of the tax law cases that I go over on the show sometimes because I find them super interesting. And I find it super interesting some of the things that people do as it relates to their taxes. It's like, you really thought you was getting away with that? But they do it. They do it. So let me see if I can find a tax case real quick. I'll be interested in that. I'll be interested in that. All right, we got a question. All right. All right, so let me put this down for a minute because I was about to go into a whole thing. Go into a whole thing. Oh, this is interesting. All right, we want to come back to that one. All right, so Still Rock says not saying the best to learn from. I just want to be more confident. Personal knowledge, learning a lot. All right, what questions you got? I am an open book. I'm an open book. All right. But if you want a little nighttime sleeping remedy, and you just want to go to sleep, I'll give you a great resource to learn about tax law. Let's see. Give me 1 second. I'll see a question in 1 second. So everything is about tax laws kind of broke down to the tax code title 26. And one place where all of it is, it's all laid out, is this publicly accessible website called one, the IRS.gov. That's one. But two, if you really want to learn, you're going to look into tax law. I said it's great nighttime reading, right? So Cornell Law School hosts a lot of tax. They host all the tax code, right? They have a whole tax code section. So you can go here, subtitle A. So this is title 26, subchapter normal taxes and surtaxes, tax on self-employment income, unearned income, Medicare, like all of these things. IRS is pulling from all of these things here. So here it says determination of tax liability. Tax on individuals, right? Tax imposed, definition, and special rules. It's all right here. Definition of surviving spouse. For the purpose of Section 1, the term surviving spouse means a taxpayer whose spouse died during either of his 2 taxable years immediately preceding the tax year. All right, so all of this stuff, right, it's great nighttime reading. Now that brings me to a point. Surviving spouse. A lot of y'all, or a lot of people don't realize this. When your spouse passes away, if they make money and they have a filing requirement, you have to file a final tax return for them. And I keep saying I'm going to do a video on that, but at some point I'll get to it. You have to file a final tax return for them. They might be owed a tax refund. Again, it will be applied to their estate. 9 times out of 10, you should open an estate for them once your spouse passes away. But anybody, and it's not just your spouse, right? People that have parents or siblings that they're taking care of, and they had a job, and they normally file taxes, well, they normally need to still file a final tax return. Now, here's a little thing. It gets a little tricky, because what happens is once you are reported to be deceased, Social Security will shut down your Social Security number. So you won't be able to file your tax return electronically. You normally have to mail it in. So again, be patient. It takes some time, but just remember when somebody passes, a loved one, it's again, spouse, sibling, anybody you're taking care of or have a love or relationship with, you might need to file their final tax return. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. All right, so wait a minute. Nope, Nicole, you can't jump the line. You cannot jump the line. So still Rops, I hope that helps, right? That gives you somewhere to look at to learn about taxes if you really want to get down to it. All right, speak peace. A good afternoon, good morning, good evening to you. Thank you for your question. All right, so how do I make sure to put up money? Let me bottle that. How do I make sure I put up enough money when I withdraw from my 401k or IRA? I'm not sure about this question. Do you mean contribute to your 401k when you're taking the money out of your paycheck and putting it away for retirement? So again, Speak P says, how do I make sure I put up enough money when I withdraw from my 401k or IRA? So if I'm reading it correctly, right, if you're saying you want to take it out of your 401k, there are some rules there. If you're normally 59 and a half, you might have to pay some taxes unless you have an exception. Death is usually an exception. Buying homes. But here's the thing. When you take money out of your check and you put it in your 401k, it's what's called tax deferred. So you put the money in, it gives you a tax benefit normally, right? The money typically grows tax free. And then when you pull it out, you get to pay taxes on it. Now, here's the trick. If you pull it out before you're the age 59 and a half, the IRS has this little tricky little tax. But they say it's not a tax. They call it a penalty. They penalize you 10% because the IRS knows people like to spend, especially the American citizen. They like to spend. So they don't want you to spend because they know once you get older and your health isn't as good as it once was when you were young and spry, they know you're going to need some help. So they want you to force you to save it. So they penalize you to dissuade you or discourage you from pulling money out of your tax return. But, okay, you said you're retired, by the way. So again, I would start with what your budget is, what you need your money for. I would set up a budget, and then that would really direct how you should be spending the money you're taking out of your 401k, out of your IRA. Whether you need money for your rent, your mortgage, your food, gas, clothes, taxes. Because guess what? Even when you're in retirement, you still got to pay taxes. So just keep that in mind. Nicole says, what is the best software to keep your business finances in? I'm using QuickBooks. I use QuickBooks myself. I encourage all my clients to use QuickBooks. So I would say, keep doing QuickBooks. But here's a trick. Do it often. Try to do it at least once a week. If not once a week, every 2 weeks. But bookkeeping is one of those things where you really got to stay on top of it, or at least set up the system right. And to me, if you have a good foundation, you can kind of catch up. Full disclosure, I'm behind on my books right now. But guess what? I know how I have my thing set up. All my business money goes into my business account. All the money I make from my clients goes into my business account. All of my business expenses come out of my business account. I use the same card for all of my business transactions, right? So when it comes time for me to catch up on my bookkeeping, I can go in there and say, hey, I went here, I did this, I brought that, I'm good to go. I just need to categorize this, all right? So set your books up right. Bank account, business bank account, that's for the money that you made, put into your account, and any money you're spending for your business should come out of that account. Now, for some of you all who are side hustlers or just starting a business, you need to put money into your account because you got to get some things funded. Don't pay things out of your personal account. Take and put that money into your business account. Deposit that money into your business account. It's a whole way of bookkeeping to help you out, right? Keep your books nice and clean. Then from there, if you got to pay a bill, pay it out of your business account. But then you can categorize it a lot better, a lot more neat. And guess what? If your business ever gets audited, they might want your your bookkeeping records, your QuickBooks records. They can look at stuff like that. So again, the better the books, the cleaner they are, the easier the audit's going to be. All right. So Amy Brown, what's up, Amy Brown? She says, I will be sleeping no time. That's funny. He will be sleeping no time reading the IRC. The IRC is rough. It's rough. All right. Kelly Beaver says, greetings. Should an owner of a corporation claim themselves as their first employee? What are the benefits and disadvantages of doing so? All right, I need some water for that one. All right, so should an owner of a corporation claim themselves as their first employee? And so if it truly is a corporation, if the owner is working in that business, the owner should be an employee. Technically, that's the only way to go. That's how you would want to do it. That is the best way to do it. Yes, they should be an employee. What are the advantages of it? It's the legal way to do it. The disadvantage of it is that would be illegal if you don't claim it that way. So that's something you got to think about. Again, anytime owner, partial owner, non-owner, anytime somebody is working in a business, they should be listed as either an employee or a contractor. All right, Kelly, same question. All right. Speak P says, I'm retired before 59 and a half. All right, you balling. Congratulations. There are some special tax provisions for that as well. Depending upon where you're at, you can set up certain things to do that. There are certain financial products you can buy as well. I would really need to know. But to answer your question, the question was how to withdraw the money, right? And I would say, one, you need to have a budget to know what you need the money for. And then you can direct the budget into whatever kind of account you need. Direct the money into whatever kind of account you need. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, you could ask more questions. Feel free. I'm behind too. All right, let's get to it. Listen, a lot of times people say that, most businesses go out of business within the first year. If not the first year, usually the first 5 years. And everybody says they don't have enough capital to run their business. Large part of that is because they don't have books. So they don't know if they're making money, if they're losing money, if they're paying taxes, not paying taxes, what they should pay tax on, what should they not pay tax on. Again, a lot of it goes down to bookkeeping. All right. Okay. Click through that by accident. Is that the same question, Kelly? I think that's the same question. All right, so I answered that. All right, so listen, I gotta get my vittles. I ain't ate. I hope this was helpful for anybody who watched this thinking about how the IRS has indeed been targeting Black taxpayers. If you don't want to be one of those people that are getting targeted, make sure you do your taxes right. If you do find yourself on the other side of an audit, make sure you have your paperwork together, right? Make sure that if you did do something wrong, just tell them. They're going to find out anyway. Again, the IRS is not that dumb and you are not that smart. They know stuff that a lot of y'all don't. And if you find yourself in a big problem with some of these states, sometimes these states have more information than the IRS does. So again, just tell the truth. Give them the documentation. Hopefully you can prove everything that you claimed on your taxes. Make sure you use reputable people to help you with your taxes, if that's the way you're going. And then you could all sleep better at night. All right? So remember, y'all, I want y'all to stay great, stay inquisitive, stay dangerous, and I will see y'all the next time. So long.